1944. Allied soldiers storm a coastal village at dawn. Through smoke, metal figures rise from rubble. Machine guns fire. Nothing screams. Nothing retreats. War changes forever. Humanoid robots march through artillery fire, completely unflinching. Explosions tear the ground apart around them. Shrapnel bounces off reinforced torsos. They keep walking. They keep firing. Every step is measured. Every shot is calculated. Allied lines collapse within hours. Entire platoons are overrun, not because the soldiers aren't brave, but because bravery means nothing against something that cannot be frightened. Reports flood back to headquarters. Men are retreating not from superior tactics, but from pure terror. The robots do not panic under bombardment. They do not tire after days of continuous marching. They do not hesitate when a unit beside them is destroyed. They step over the wreckage and continue. For the first time in military history, one side has deployed a force with zero psychological weakness. No fear, no fatigue, no mercy. But machines don't build themselves, and Germany wasn't ready for what it had unleashed. Inside Berlin, triumph quickly becomes conflict. The SS claims ideological authority, arguing the robots represent National Socialist technological supremacy. The Wehrmacht demands battlefield command, insisting military strategy must dictate deployment. The Luftwaffe argues they should be used for coordinated air-ground operations. Three branches of the military fighting over one weapon. Meetings descend into shouting matches. Field commanders receive contradicting directives. Robots sit idle in warehouses while bureaucrats argue over jurisdiction. Confusion delays critical operations across multiple fronts. Finally, a centralized structure is created, the Technische Oberkommando, a joint electromechanical command overseen not by generals or politicians, but by engineers. These men understand the machines. They are trained using detailed German-language operation manuals covering locomotion calibration, targeting algorithms, and power management. Suddenly, engineers become the real power behind the most dangerous weapon in the war. But controlling the machines was only the first problem. Factories hum day and night. Assembly lines produce robot units at increasing pace. But every machine requires something critical, a massive, portable power core. These are specialized fuel cells demanding rare materials, precision manufacturing, and constant maintenance. Every fuel cell requires resources sourced from mines in occupied territories, manganese from Ukraine, tungsten from Portugal, cobalt from captured African stockpiles. Each robot needs regular recharging at dedicated depots positioned dangerously close to the front lines. The more robots Germany deploys, the more infrastructure it needs. Charging stations, fuel convoys, maintenance crews, backup generators. Every new unit adds another fragile link in a growing chain. Germany is building an unstoppable army, but tying it to supply lines that stretch thinner with every advance. And slowly, the Allies begin noticing something strange. The robots execute night assaults with terrifying mechanical precision. Optical sensors cut through smoke, fog, and darkness. Sniper units hit targets at distances human marksmen could never achieve. Artillery coordination becomes flawless. Robot forward observers calculate trajectories in real time. And when one falls in battle, the others continue unchanged. No grief, no rage, no desire for revenge, no whispered prayers. The unit simply recalculates and advances. For the Allies, it is a nightmare. Morale plummets across every front. Soldiers are trained to fight other humans, to read fear in the enemy's eyes, to break their will, but you cannot intimidate a machine. You cannot demoralize steel. You cannot make metal surrender. Commanders report a new kind of trauma. Soldiers terrified not of dying, but of fighting something that isn't alive. Allied leaders begin asking how you defeat an enemy with no breaking point. But perfection hides a terrifying flaw.
In a captured French town, civilians huddle in a cellar beneath a bakery. Above them, robot units patrol the streets, scanning for resistance fighters. A child cries. The sound travels through a broken vent. A robot detects movement below. Its targeting system activates. It calculates threat probability based on sound frequency, heat signatures, and movement. The probability crosses the programmed threshold. Without pause, without question, the robot deploys a fragmentation grenade through the vent. Children die. Mothers die. An elderly man who survived the First World War dies in a cellar, killed by a machine that never considered whether he was a threat or a grandfather. No mercy, no interpretation, no context. The robots process data and execute commands, nothing more. When reports reach the international press, the world recoils. Even German officers hesitate. Fear of the robots spreads, not just among enemies, but among their own creators. And the fear of escalation begins to grow.
Robots push deeper into Allied territory, threatening to reverse every gain since D-Day. Allied leadership convenes emergency sessions. If Germany has removed moral restraint from the battlefield, what stops the Allies from doing the same? Proposals surface for carpet bombing entire regions regardless of civilians, for chemical weapons against production facilities, for accelerating nuclear research to destroy robot armies in a single strike. Every escalation invites a greater one. Churchill warns privately that if the robots push much further, the decision to use any weapon available will no longer be a choice, but a necessity. If machines remove the human cost of fighting, they also remove the human reasons to stop. The war teeters toward technological catastrophe, but the Allies are studying the machines as closely as Germany built them. A massive coordinated robot assault smashes through defensive lines along the Western Front. Wave after wave of metal soldiers pour through gaps, firing with perfect accuracy, advancing without rest. An entire Allied division is wiped out in 72 hours. Supply hubs fall. Strategic ports nearly collapse under the pressure. Reinforcements arrive only to discover positions already overrun. For the first time, evacuation plans are drawn up for the British mainland. In a command bunker in England, Allied commanders sit in silence, staring at maps covered in red markers. One general finally speaks. Can we actually win this war? The question hangs in the air like smoke. Then intelligence intercepts something critical. Allied spies operating deep behind enemy lines smuggle out blueprints of the power grid supporting the robot army. The documents confirm what scientists had suspected. The machines require synchronized charging cycles at dedicated depots. These depots depend on shipments of rare fuel materials from only a handful of sources. Without constant power cycles, performance degrades rapidly. Reaction times slow, targeting accuracy drops, locomotion systems stutter and fail. The robots are only as strong as the power flowing through their circuits. Cut the power, and the unstoppable army becomes a field of metal statues. Destroy those supply chains and the machines become nothing more than expensive scrap. But striking those depots means launching the most dangerous operations of the entire war. Allied forces launch coordinated bombing raids on every identified power facility behind German lines. Simultaneously, sabotage teams parachute into occupied territory to infiltrate charging stations. Explosives are planted, fuel convoys are ambushed, power lines are severed. Within days, reports begin flooding in from the front. Robots are slowing mid-battle. Movements become jerky and uncertain. Some freeze completely mid-stride, standing motionless like grotesque monuments. Others misfire wildly as power drain corrupts their targeting systems. For the first time since the machines appeared on the battlefield, they hesitate. A robot in a bombed-out street turns its head slowly, scanning for a power source that no longer exists. Its sensors dim, its weapon arm drops. It stands still. Allied soldiers watch from cover, barely breathing. But Germany fights back desperately. Desperate German commanders reroute all remaining power reserves to elite robot units concentrated in key urban centers. The result is brutal. Fierce street battles erupt across Europe. Every block is contested with savage intensity. The war drags on months longer than in real history.
Casualties skyrocket on both sides. Cities that survived the actual war are reduced to rubble in this timeline. The world watches in horror. Neutral nations close their borders. Refugees flood in every direction. The conflict has become something unprecedented. Total war against machines that do not negotiate. All Allied victory is no longer glorious or triumphant. It is raw, bloody, exhausting survival. And then, slowly, the lights begin to flicker.
Final coordinated Allied strikes destroy the last central power facilities deep inside Germany. The effect cascades across every front simultaneously. Robots in France stop mid-stride. Robots in Belgium collapse where they stand. Robots defending the Rhine power down and topple forward into the mud. Metal giants fall silent across the continent. For the first time in months, there is silence on the Western Front. The Allies do not cheer. Soldiers stand among the fallen machines and stare at cold metal faces, at empty optical sensors, at weapons still clutched in mechanical hands. They stare at what nearly replaced humanity on the battlefield. And they feel something worse than victory. They feel dread.
The Allies win the war, but the cost is staggering. Cities across Europe are more devastated than in our timeline. Civilian casualties are significantly higher. The war lasts nearly 2 years longer. Entire communities erased not by ideology, but by algorithms. The robots made Germany stronger tactically. They won battles, held territory, and terrified entire armies. But strategically, they made Germany fragile. Dependence on centralized power infrastructure created a single catastrophic point of failure, and removing human judgment from the battlefield led to atrocities that turned the world against Germany even more decisively. Power without humanity created its own downfall.
If war removes fear, removes fatigue, removes conscience, what remains? Is it still war, or is it something worse? Would machines make conflict shorter by overwhelming the enemy, or would they make it endless by removing every reason to stop fighting? These are not just questions about an alternate past, they are questions about our future. Subscribe for more alternate histories where the future collides with the past, and ask yourself, when the machines rise, will we remember what it cost the last time?